Millionaire CEO arranges blind date for his brother. But his missing ex-fiancée walks in instead. Before we begin, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. She brought her son to the gala, and the CEO froze when he saw his own eyes staring back. "Mom, do I have a dad like the other kids?" That's what he asked, just once. So she put on the old green dress, held his hand tight, and walked straight into the winter gala, where the man who once loved her looked right through her until he saw the boy's eyes. His eyes, and everything he'd forgotten, came rushing back. She wasn't there for revenge, just an answer. She hadn't worn the green dress in nearly a decade. The silk still fit, barely, though time had softened her shape, carved out shadows where youth once glowed. Rey Adams stood outside the Langford Gala, gripping her small clutch like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her heels trembled on the marble steps. Or maybe it was her heart. Beside her, Leo adjusted his tiny bow tie. 8 years old and already trying to act braver than she felt. "Are you sure he's in there?" he asked, eyes wide and searching. Rey nodded. "I saw his name on the donor wall. He never misses a night like this." Leo squinted at the entrance like it might swallow him whole. "Is he scary?" Her heart cracked. "No," she said softly. "Not once." Inside, the gala glowed with warmth and wealth. Waiters floated past with flutes of champagne. A jazz trio played under a grand staircase. Laughter echoed off vaulted ceilings. Rey had spent years building a life as far away from this world as she could. And now here she was, walking her son into it, hand in hand, praying her knees wouldn't buckle. They blended like shadows in the corners. No one noticed the woman in last season's heels, or the little boy staring too long at the ice sculpture, until he spoke. "Mom," he whispered, tugging her coat. "Is that him?" Her breath caught. She looked up, and there he was, Ethan Walker, taller, sharper, more powerful than he'd ever dared to be at 26, surrounded by board members, laughing at something she couldn't hear. His suit was perfectly tailored, his eyes the same green that used to study her sketches. Her freckles, her soul now scanned the room like a man in full control. He didn't see her, didn't flinch, didn't blink, and somehow that hurt more than she thought it would. Leo pressed closer. "Do you think he knows?" "No, baby," she murmured. "He doesn't know anything." She turned to leave. This was a mistake. She should have burned the green dress years ago. But then Leo did something she hadn't expected. He let go of her hand and walked toward the man who didn't even know he had a son. Ethan glanced down, startled by the small figure at his side. "Hey, little man," he said, offering a practiced smile. "You lost." Leo just stared at him, long, quiet. Then, softly, "You have my eyes." Rey froze. Across the ballroom, Ethan's smile faltered. His eyes lifted, scanning behind the boy, and then they found her. Time didn't slow. It stopped. The champagne, the laughter, the business conversations all turned to dust because Ethan Walker wasn't looking at a stranger anymore. He was looking at the only woman who ever shattered his heart. She didn't come here to ruin his life. She came so her son could ask a question no child should have to. "Do I have a dad like other kids?" Chapter 1. He didn't recognize the woman who never stopped loving him. He hadn't looked at her, not truly, not until the boy said it. "You have my eyes." The child stood barely waist-high in front of him, dressed in a little suit and scuffed shoes that didn't belong in a place like this. Ethan had smiled politely at first, assuming he was lost. But then the words sank in, and something shifted. He turned, slowly, as if his own body knew before his brain caught up. That's when he saw her. The green dress, the red lipstick, the eyes that had once made him forget the rest of the world. And suddenly, the rest of the world didn't matter. Rey. Her name fell out of his mouth like a memory that never left. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," she said. "He just wanted to know." And I didn't know how else to give him the answer. Ethan stared at her. He tried to blink, to speak, to find something solid inside the earthquake tearing through his chest. "Who is he?" he asked, his voice low and unsteady. She didn't answer. He stepped forward. "Rey, who is he?" She finally looked at him, and in that gaze, he saw everything she hadn't said in 9 years. "His name is Leo." He whispered it. "Leo." A pause, a breath, a question he wasn't ready for but had to ask. "How old is he?" Her answer was a whisper. 8. The world fell silent. 8. His knees gave out, and he sank into the nearest chair. His hands trembled against his knees. He didn't need a paternity test. The math did it for him. So did the boy's eyes. "I didn't know," Ethan said, the words scraping out of him. "Rey." "God, I didn't know. You weren't supposed to." He looked up at her. "You disappeared." No calls, no messages, no goodbye, just a note and a ring on the nightstand. Her voice was quiet, steady. "I left because I had to. You didn't even let me fight for you. You didn't try." His heart cracked open right there in that quiet room. Because she was right. He hadn't chased her. Not the way he should have. Not when it mattered most. "I looked for you," he said, eyes dark with pain. "For months, I thought you were dead." She closed her eyes. Her grip on the boy's hand tightened. He swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell me about him?" Rey's voice softened. "Because I didn't know if you were still you." He flinched. "Still me?" She nodded. "You became unreachable, untouchable. Your father made sure of that." "Of course he did." Ethan's jaw clenched. David Walker didn't tolerate distractions, and Rey Adams had always been the only one who could pull Ethan away from the future his father had charted for him. "What does he know?" Ethan asked, nodding toward the boy. "Does he know I'm his father?" "No," Rey said. "He just knows you're someone who used to mean everything to me." Ethan stood slowly, stepping toward the boy. Leo was running his fingers across the edge of a crystal platter like it was a spaceship. His whole world still innocent, untouched by the silence between the adults in the room. "Does he ask?" Ethan asked, voice tight, all the time. "And what do you tell him?" Rey's voice cracked. "I tell him the truth. That his dad was someone I loved very much. And that he had to go away before Leo was born." He turned to her, his eyes full of regret, disbelief, something almost pleading. "I didn't go away. Rey, you were taken from me, and you believed it." She didn't say it to wound him. She said it like a truth she'd carried too long. They stood in silence, broken only by the boy's quiet humming. "Do you want us to leave?" she asked. He shook his head. "No. Please, don't." She hesitated. "I just need time," he said, "to understand everything I missed." After a long pause, Rey nodded. "For him," she said, "not for me." But Ethan wasn't sure that was true, because when she looked at him again, her eyes held something she hadn't let him see in 9 years. Hope, and maybe, beneath it, something dangerously close to love. Chapter 2. The boy, with his father's eyes. Rey hadn't expected him to follow them, but he did. Out of the ballroom, down the quiet hall, past portraits of old donors and oil-slick promises. The moment the lounge door clicked shut behind them, silence bloomed like a bruise between them. Leo sat in a velvet chair by the window, legs swinging, gaze fixed on the city lights outside. He looked so much like Ethan, it made Rey's breath catch the tilt of his jaw, the flick of his brow. when he was deep in thought. Ethan hadn't spoken since they left the ballroom. His eyes were on Rey, always on Rey. "I had no idea," he said at last. His voice didn't sound like it belonged to a CEO. It sounded like a man breaking. She nodded. "You should have told me." "I wanted to," she whispered, "but I didn't know how." He laughed, bitter and small. "A phone call would have worked. You think it was that simple? Wasn't it?" She looked up at him. Her eyes were tired now, rimmed red from holding too much. "No," she said. "It wasn't." He sat across from her, like he used to in their first apartment. That crooked table. Cheap wine. His tie always halfway undone. Her sketchbook in her lap. "You left me a note," he said. "I was 23. Ethan, pregnant, terrified, and your father had just told me what my future would look like if I stayed." He stilled. "What?" Rey swallowed. "You were at a board meeting that night. He showed up at our door, said he had an alternative vision for your life." His hands clenched into fists. "I thought he was bluffing at first," she continued. "But then he told me about the money, the control, what he would take from you if I stayed. And then he offered me a deal." Ethan's voice was flat. "What kind of deal?" "That I leave quietly. No contact, and in exchange, I'd be taken care of. Enough money to survive, enough privacy to disappear." He stood so fast the chair behind him groaned. "I never knew." "I believe you," she said. Now, he turned toward the window, staring out into the blackness like it owed him answers. "He told me you'd changed your mind, that you realized you didn't love me enough to live that life." "That's the part he was right about," Rey whispered. Ethan looked back at her, stunned. She nodded slowly. "I didn't love you enough to watch you lose everything." He sank into the nearest chair, like the air had been stolen from him. Leo's voice cut through the stillness. "Mom?" Rey turned. "Yes." "Baby, can I go look at the Christmas tree in the hallway?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Just stay where I can see you." The boy slipped out, leaving the door open, just a crack. Ethan didn't move. "Does he know anything about me?" he asked. "He knows he's loved. He knows I was young, and that I made choices to keep him safe." Ethan let out a breath that sounded like grief. "I missed everything," he whispered. "First steps, first words, first everything." She nodded. "So did I, in a different way." He looked up at her. "I wasn't just hiding from you," she said. "I was hiding from the girl I used to be, from the love that nearly burned my whole life down." Ethan stood slowly, walked to where she sat, and crouched down. "Tell me he's happy," he said. A tear slipped from Rey's lashes. "He is. Tell me I didn't ruin him." She shook her head. "He's brilliant, kind. He draws faces and makes up songs about planets. And he has your eyes." "Ethan." He closed his. "Let me be part of his life," he said. "I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try. I don't know if I can trust you," she admitted. "Not yet." "Then let me show you," he said quietly. "One day at a time." The door opened gently, and Leo returned, cradling a snowflake ornament in his small hands. "Mom," he said, "the tree has sparkles." Ethan turned toward him. Their eyes met again. Leo studied him. "Were you sad when you saw me?" Ethan swallowed hard. "No, I was surprised. You looked like you wanted to cry. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're happy. Are you happy now?" He looked over at Rey, and he said the only true thing he knew. "I could be." He didn't ask for a second chance at love. He asked for a first chance to be the kind of man his son could look up to. Chapter 3. The first time he saw her life without him. Ethan had never been nervous walking into a building before. Not courtrooms, not boardrooms, not even billion-dollar acquisition rooms, but standing in front of the modest walk-up apartment where Rey lived, one floor above a laundromat, and below an apartment with cracked balcony lights. His hands shook. She had texted him the address. Just that. No punctuation, no warning. Leo had asked to see him again, and Rey had said yes. He knocked softly. When the door opened, Rey didn't greet him with a smile. She simply stepped aside and said, "He's in his room. Give me a second before you go in." The space was small, lived in, comfortable. A second-hand bookshelf leaned slightly to the left, filled with children's books and worn-out classics. Crayon drawings were taped along the hallway walls like gallery pieces. The coffee mug on the counter read, "Strong as a mother." Ethan took it all in quietly. This wasn't the life she'd planned with him. This was the life she built without him. And somehow, it broke him more than he expected. Rey appeared moments later, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "He's ready." Ethan stepped into the room and stopped. There were planets on the ceiling, hanging from invisible strings, a stack of books beside a twin bed, shaped like a spaceship, and in the corner, a drawing table covered in pencil shavings and eraser dust. Leo sat cross-legged on the rug, staring up at him with quiet curiosity. "You came. I told you I would." "I wasn't sure," Leo said. "Some people say things they don't mean." Ethan smiled gently. "I'm not some people." Leo tilted his head. "My mom said I could ask questions, that you'd answer. I'll try." The boy studied him, those green eyes narrowing like he was deciphering a code. "Were you scared when you found out about me?" Ethan didn't look at Rey, who now stood just outside the doorway, arms crossed. "Yes," he said, truthfully. "Not of you, of what I missed." Leo nodded like that made sense. "Are you going to go away again?" "No," Ethan said, his voice steady. "Not unless your mom kicks me out." The boy grinned. "She's scary when she's mad." "I know." Ethan laughed softly. "She always has been." They spent the next hour building a solar system out of Legos. Leo narrated each planet's story. Mercury was a grumpy loner. Venus liked spaghetti. And Jupiter had a pet dragon. Ethan listened to every word like it was gospel. When Leo left the room to use the bathroom, Rey stepped in. "You're good with him," she said. "I'm trying." "You're listening." "That's enough for now." He looked at her. "You made something beautiful," he said, voice low. "This life, this child." Rey's expression softened. "You helped." "I didn't." "You did, even if you weren't there." Ethan's eyes moved to a framed sketch on Leo's dresser. It was of a man, just a profile. Strong jaw, serious eyes, unfinished lines. "Did he draw that?" She nodded. "From memory," she said. "From a photo I kept hidden in my closet." "Which one?" "The one where we were on the roof, watching fireworks." "You were laughing." Ethan smiled faintly. "That night, I told you I'd build a life with you." Rey looked down. "You did." "No," he said. "I didn't." Her eyes met his. "You're here now." Leo burst back in, holding a folded paper. "Mom," I showed him Saturn, "and I drew something." He opened the paper and held it out to Ethan. It was a family, 3 stick figures. One tall, one with curly hair, one small with a crown. Above it, the word, "Us." Ethan felt everything in his chest collapse and rebuild at once. Rey stepped closer. "He's been drawing that same picture since he was 5. The third person's face always changed. Sometimes it was no one. Sometimes just a shadow." Ethan stared at the page. Leo leaned in. "You can be in it, if you want." "I want to," Ethan whispered. "More than anything." He came to see a child. He found the only life that ever felt like home. Chapter 4. Her world was built without him, but it still had room for his hands. That weekend, Rey invited him to the gallery, not for a date, not for a conversation, just to see it. "Leo wants to show you his drawing," she'd said, almost offhand, like it wasn't the biggest olive branch she'd ever extended. Ethan didn't sleep the night before. When he arrived, the gallery smelled like paint and jasmine. A child's backpack hung on the coat hook near the entrance. The floor still gleamed from being hand-mopped. This wasn't just a gallery. This was Rey's world, He stood there for a moment, stunned by how much of her soul was etched into every wall. Then her voice floated over from the corner. "You're early." He turned. She was in jeans and a black turtleneck, her curls tied loosely at the nape of her neck. No lipstick this time. Just Rey, real and unguarded. "You always used to be late," she added softly, not smiling. "I'm trying not to be that man anymore," Ethan replied. She nodded. "Good." Leo bounded out from the back like a comet. "Daddy." It was the first time he'd said it. Ethan froze. "Is that okay?" Leo asked, sensing the shift in the air. Rey looked at Ethan, her eyes wide, unsure. "Yes," Ethan whispered, his throat tight. "Yes, of course it's okay." Leo grinned and pulled him by the hand toward a new painting displayed on a side wall. "This one's mine." It wasn't just a drawing. It was a storm. Blues and blacks swirled with smears of white chalk, a boy in the middle holding two hands, one large and strong, one soft and curved. "I made us a storm," Leo said, "but we're not afraid. We're together in it." Ethan didn't realize he was crying until Rey handed him a tissue. Later, when Leo settled in the back office with headphones and a tablet, Rey made coffee. They sat in the quiet of the gallery, surrounded by forgotten canvases and half-hung dreams. "I lied to you once," she said. "Eyes down." Ethan looked up. "I told you I left because I needed space," she continued, but it wasn't space. It was fear. He said nothing, letting her speak. "I was afraid that loving you would mean erasing myself. Your world didn't have space for my voice, just my beauty, my silence, my compliance." Ethan flinched. "I'm not that man anymore. I want to believe that. Let me show you," he said gently. Rey held his gaze for a long, trembling moment, then looked away. "I need to protect Leo." "I'm not here to take," Ethan said. "I'm here to build whatever you'll let me." Just before he left, Rey walked him to the door. They stood in the open air, silence spinning between them like old ribbon. "You broke me," she whispered. "I broke, too," he said. And for the first time in years, their eyes met in a way that didn't sting. It just ached. She had learned to live without him, but part of her had always saved a space, just in case he ever remembered how to come home. Chapter 5. She wanted to trust him, but memory had a longer reach than hope. It started with the little things. Ethan began showing up on Wednesdays with Leo's favorite strawberry muffins. On Fridays, he helped Rey hang new artwork after closing hours, climbing ladders, and pretending not to be afraid of heights. He never pushed, never asked for more than she was willing to give. And maybe that's why it scared her so much. One evening, the gallery was quiet. Leo was asleep in the back, curled under his favorite galaxy blanket. Rey stood on a stool, adjusting a spotlight, when the bulb slipped in her hand and shattered. She gasped, jerking back, and lost her balance. Ethan caught her before her feet even hit the ground. His arms were around her waist, hers around his neck. And just like that, they were tangled in something neither of them was ready to name. Her breath hitched. He didn't move. "You okay?" he asked, his voice close. Rey nodded, but didn't let go. And for a moment, everything felt like before, like midnight rooftops and whispered promises, like their bodies remembered what their hearts still feared. Then she stepped back, too quickly, too guilty. "I'm fine," she said, turning away. But Ethan saw the tremble in her hands. Later that night, she found a folded note tucked under the paint tray. It wasn't a love letter. It was a list. Replace bulb in corner spotlight. Order more canvases. Fix gallery door hinge. Keep showing up. Keep being gentle. Don't scare her away. Her fingers brushed over the last line. And for the first time in years, she cried. Not from anger, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of being seen. The next day, Ethan came by to take Leo to the museum. He didn't mention the note. He just knelt beside his son and said, "You ready to look at dinosaurs and pretend they're not extinct?" Leo grinned. "Can we also pretend T-Rexes could paint only if they used very small brushes?" Ethan whispered back. Rey stood at the door, watching them walk down the sidewalk, her arms wrapped around her middle. She had spent years building a world where no one could leave her again. And now, here was this man, the one who left without knowing he did returning, slowly, carefully, like he understood he wasn't just walking into her life. He was walking into her scars. That night, when they returned, Leo ran ahead. "I drew a dinosaur eating ice cream," he shouted, holding up a crumpled paper. Ethan stayed behind. The porch light caught the lines of exhaustion on his face, but his eyes, they were clearer than ever. "Rey," he said quietly, "I know what I lost. I feel it every time I look at you." At him. She didn't answer. "I don't want to rewrite the past. I want to be in the pages that come next." Rey looked at him for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Come in." Just those two words. But to Ethan, it felt like forgiveness might finally have a door to knock on. She wasn't ready to fall in love again, but she was ready to stop pretending she hadn't stayed in love all along. Chapter 6. The space between forgiveness and forever. The first time Rey let him stay for dinner, she nearly burned the garlic bread. She was so focused on the way Ethan fit into her kitchen sleeves rolled up, laughing with Leo over mismatched silverware, that she forgot about the oven. Smoke curled from the edges like a warning, but Ethan waved it off, grinning. "I've eaten worse," he said. "College dining hall, 2007. Never forget." Leo snorted. "You ate this bad on purpose." Ethan leaned in, like it was a secret. "Once, I microwaved eggs." Rey blinked. "You what?" "It exploded." Leo burst out laughing, and Rey, against her better judgment, smiled. After dinner, Ethan helped clear the plates without being asked. He moved through her home like he belonged there, not with entitlement, but with care. Like someone who knew he was lucky to be invited inside. Leo wandered into the living room and returned with a small stack of photo albums. "Can we show him?" "Mom," Rey hesitated. "You don't have to," Ethan said quickly, hands still damp from the dishwater. But Rey nodded. She sat beside Leo on the couch, pulled the blanket over their knees, and opened the first page. There were baby pictures. Rey in the hospital bed, sweaty and radiant, cradling a wrinkled newborn with wild hair and squinting eyes. First steps, finger paint, Halloween costumes, a birthday cake that had fallen sideways but still tasted sweet. Ethan watched silently, every photo like a punch and a prayer. Then Rey handed him one. It was a picture of Leo, about 5, standing in a park, holding up a sketch of a man in a suit. "He drew that the first time he asked about you," she said. Ethan stared at the crooked lines and the familiar tie, the one he used to wear when they lived together. "I didn't even know he'd seen that tie." Ethan whispered, "I kept one picture of you, just one, in a box in my closet. He must have found it." Ethan closed his eyes. "You didn't have to protect me from him." "I wasn't," Rey said softly. "I was protecting him from the possibility that you didn't care." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "I cared. I care. I know that now," Rey whispered. Later, after Leo fell asleep on the couch mid-cartoon, Ethan helped Rey carry him to bed. They stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching his tiny chest rise and fall. "He talks about you constantly now," she said. "He calls you Space Dad." Ethan chuckled. "Best title I've ever had." Then, without thinking, he reached out and brushed a loose curl behind her ear. Rey didn't flinch, but she didn't lean in either. Her voice was low. "You're doing everything right." That sounded like a warning. "It is," she said, "because I'm starting to remember what it felt like to trust you." Ethan stepped closer. You don't have to be afraid of me. I'm afraid of needing you. Then don't need me, he said. Eyes steady. Just want me. When you're ready, she exhaled, shaky and slow, and for the first time, let her fingers brush his, just enough to say, not yet. But maybe healing wasn't loud. Sometimes it sounded like two fingers touching in the dark, and the silence that didn't feel empty anymore. Chapter 7. The night her silence couldn't protect him anymore. Ethan's father showed up on a Tuesday. No warning. Just a knock that felt like thunder on Rey's front door. She opened it, and there he stood. David Walker, impeccable coat, steel gray eyes. The kind of presence that made you feel like a child, even when you'd built your own life. May I come in? He asked, already halfway inside. Rey didn't answer, but she stepped aside. Leo was at school. Ethan was across town, in a boardroom he no longer wanted to belong to. And she was alone with the man who had orchestrated 9 years of heartbreak. He didn't sit. He walked the living room like an appraiser, cataloging every imperfection, the chipped coffee table, the crayons on the floor, the faint scent of lavender and old dreams. Then he turned to her. I warned you once, he said, and here you are, again, in his life, dragging him down. Rey's spine straightened. I didn't drag him anywhere. He walked back on his own. David's smile was cold. He's reckless, emotionally compromised. He's risking the company, his future. For what? Some woman who paints walls and a boy who doesn't even have his name. She didn't speak because rage had silenced her before. This time, she wouldn't give it the satisfaction. He was born without your permission, she said finally, and he's been fine without you. David stepped closer. I made you disappear once. I can do it again. Something flickered in Rey's eyes. Not fear, not this time. Strength. You only got to erase me because I let you, she said quietly. Because I believed you when you said I'd ruin him. And haven't you? He snapped. No, came another voice. Ethan stood in the doorway, his tie half loosened, his eyes dark. You did that all on your own. The air turned sharp. Ethan walked past his father and stood beside Rey. Whatever you came here to do, he said, you've already lost. David raised a brow. Is that so? I know everything, Ethan said. The threats, the money, the night you lied to her, so I wouldn't have to choose. You didn't save me, Dad. You broke us, David scoffed. You were a child. I was in love, Ethan said, and you used that against me. Silence. Then, softer. You let me mourn a woman who wasn't dead. Let me doubt myself for years. David didn't respond. I have a daughter, Ethan said. Her name is Leo, and she will never wonder if she's too much or not enough for the people who are supposed to love her. Rey blinked. A tear slipped, slow and quiet. David's jaw tensed. You'd give up your legacy for this. I'd give up everything, Ethan said, and I already have. When David finally left, he didn't slam the door. He just walked out, like a man who'd finally realized he had no more strings to pull. Ethan turned to Rey. I'm sorry. For what? For what he did. For what I didn't know. For the years you cried alone. She stepped into his arms, slowly. And this time, when he held her, she didn't resist. That night, Ethan didn't go home. They didn't sleep together. They just stayed awake, lying side by side on the living room couch, breathing in the silence, the warmth, the beginning of something honest. I used to dream of this, Rey whispered. What part? You knowing the truth. And still choosing me. Ethan kissed her forehead. I never stopped choosing you. She had once walked away, so he wouldn't have to choose. Now, he was standing still, just to prove he never should have let her go. Chapter 8. Pancakes, Promises, and the Pieces That Still Hurt. It was a Sunday morning when Leo declared, This is the best day of my whole life. He was sitting at the kitchen table, face smeared with syrup, wearing a dinosaur hoodie 2 sizes too big. Rey was flipping pancakes, humming under her breath. Ethan was burning bacon. Again, they were messy, loud, and laughing like the past didn't exist. Ethan looked across the room and felt that aching, impossible joy that hurts a little just because it's so good. After breakfast, they made a pillow fort in the living room. Rey pretended to protest. "We have laundry to do, groceries to too late." Leo shouted, diving under the blankets. "You've been recruited." Ethan grinned. "Commander Leo strikes again." "From beneath the fort," Rey whispered. "When was the last time you did this?" Ethan paused. "Never. Not like this. You didn't build pillow forts as a kid." "I built reports. My dad gave me a toy calculator when I was 5. Rey reached out, her fingers brushing his. "Then let's teach you." That night, after Leo fell asleep, with socks still on and arms wrapped around his sketch pad, Rey and Ethan sat on the front porch under soft yellow light. The air smelled like wet earth and sugar. "I could get used to this," Ethan said. "To what?" "This rhythm. Slower, sweeter, like breathing doesn't hurt anymore." Rey looked at him, unsure. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "For the first time in my life, I'm not chasing anything, just staying." But the next morning, reality knocked again. Marge, Ethan's assistant, called. "The board wants answers. Your father's trying to freeze you out of the trust. He's threatening a vote to remove you." Ethan stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, watching Rey help Leo tie his shoes. "I don't care about the trust," he said. "You might need to," Marge warned. "He's not just going after you now. He's targeting Rey, her gallery, her reputation." Ethan's voice dropped. "Tell the board to schedule the vote. And call the lawyer. We fight on all fronts." That night, Ethan told Rey everything. About the boardroom threats, the inheritance, the risk. "You could lose everything," she whispered. "I already did," he said, looking at her. "And somehow, I survived." "But you worked your whole life for that company." He smiled. "I used to think success was winning my father's approval. But now, I know it's pancakes and dinosaurs and messy forts." She didn't say anything. He stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to carry this with me, but I won't let him take away the one thing I should have protected all along." "What's that?" "You," he said, "and the child you raised without me." She kissed him that night, slow, tender, like forgiveness. "And when they pulled away," she said, "then let's build something together, not from what we lost, but from what we still have." She didn't need him to fight for her. She just needed to know. He finally believed she was worth the war. Chapter 9. When the truth finally spoke for itself. The lawsuit came on a Thursday, delivered by a courier in a sleek black suit. The envelope was thick, too thick, and printed on paper that smelled like money and threat. David Walker versus Ethan Walker. Custody petition and financial misconduct allegations. Rey read the first page and sat down on the couch like her knees had folded. "He's not just trying to take the company," Ethan said, pacing. "He's trying to take her." Rey stared at the sentence again. That chilling line. "The child currently known as Leo Rey Williams may benefit from alternative placement with a more stable familial guardian." "He's saying I'm unstable," Ethan muttered. "That you're unfit. That Leo should be raised by someone else. Someone with less scandal, more pedigree. Someone who doesn't love her," Rey said, her voice sharp and flat. Ethan froze. "I'm not losing her again," he said. "I'll fight with everything I have. Then we fight together," Rey whispered. The court date was scheduled within the month. The media caught wind quickly. CEO family feud, Ethan Walker's secret daughter, Sparks corporate custody war, heiress or hoax, gallery owner at the center of Walker family scandal. Reporters staked out the gallery, Parents whispered at Leo's school, and through it all, Leo stayed quiet, watching, listening, drawing. One evening, Rey found a new picture under his pillow. It was of a house on fire. Inside, a girl and a boy stood holding hands, facing the flames. No one was crying. They were smiling. The courtroom was cold. Ethan held Rey's hand as they walked in together. Leo sat quietly between them, clutching a small purple notebook. David was already inside pristine suit, unbothered stare. His lawyers lined up like soldiers. "Don't look at him," Rey whispered. "Look at us." The judge, a woman with silver hair and a gaze like steel, asked her first question carefully. "Ms. Williams, do you feel you acted in the child's best interests by keeping her father's identity hidden?" Rey's voice didn't tremble. "No," she said, "but I did what I had to do to keep her safe. And now, I'd give my last breath to make sure she never feels abandoned again." Ethan testified next. "I didn't just lose a child," he said. "I lost 9 years of being the man I always wanted to be. And the moment I found out, I started becoming him. And what do you say to your father's accusation that you're emotionally unfit?" Ethan met the judge's eyes. "I think emotional depth is the reason I finally am fit. I know pain. I know consequence. And I know I'll never take my daughter for granted." Then the judge called Leo. Everyone stilled. Rey's breath caught. But Leo stood, walked forward with his sketchbook, and climbed into the chair. The judge smiled. "Do you know why you're here, sweetheart?" "Yes," Leo said, swinging her feet, "because some grown-ups don't know what love looks like unless you draw it for them." A few people chuckled. The judge nodded. "And what does love look like to you?" Leo opened the sketchbook. Inside, there was a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands under a roof. One had a crown. One had paint on her cheeks. The third wore a suit and a heart on his chest. "This is my family," Leo said. "They make mistakes, but they never stop loving me. And I don't want anyone else, even if they have fancier shoes." David's lawyer objected. "This is emotional manipulation." "No," the judge said, eyes sharp. "This is the truth from the only person in this room who has nothing to gain or lose." Afterward, Rey held Ethan's hand as the judge read her decision. Custody remains solely with Miss Williams and Mr. Walker. Petition denied. Court adjourned. The gavel hit. Ethan turned to Rey. Leo launched into both their arms. David didn't even wait to be dismissed. He walked out like a man who lost everything. Not just the case, but control. That night, back home, Rey curled into Ethan's chest on the living room floor. They didn't speak, not at first. Then she said, "I used to think love was about choosing someone. And now I think it's about choosing someone again and again. Even after it hurts." He kissed her temple. "And I'll keep choosing you," he whispered. "Every morning, every mistake, every storm." They didn't win because they were perfect. They won because they were finally honest, and the truth had waited long enough. Chapter 10. The life they were always meant to live. 3 months later, the gallery looked different. The walls were warmer, the lighting softer, and a small corner, once empty, now held a tiny desk, a cup of colored pencils, and a hand-painted sign that read, "Leo's Corner." Rey had insisted on keeping it there. "A child's laughter belongs in places built on beauty," she said. And Ethan finally believed her. He'd resigned from the board last week, walked into the same office his father once ruled with an iron gaze, and left behind everything that no longer held his heart. He started a new company, quiet, local, focused on helping small, creative businesses thrive. He called it Northlight because, as he said, that's the light artists need most, the soft kind, the kind that stays steady even when the world turns. He proposed on a rainy Tuesday. No grand gesture, no crowd, just pancakes in the kitchen. Leo in pajamas, and a ring slipped onto Rey's paint-stained finger as she read the Sunday comics aloud. "Is this really how you want to ask me?" she teased, half laughing, half crying. He smiled. "I don't need to sweep you off your feet," he whispered. "I just want to stand still with you for the rest of my life." She said yes, and Leo, ever the artist, made their engagement announcement by drawing 3 stars orbiting a single sun beneath it. In crayon, we found each other. Their wedding was held in the gallery. Just close friends, a few kids from Leo's class. Rey wore a dress with pockets and walked herself down the aisle with Leo on one side and her past on the other. The past she no longer feared. Ethan cried when she reached him. Leo held their rings in a velvet box and announced, "You may now kiss the artist." Everyone laughed, and Rey's hand didn't shake when she said, "I do." Months passed. One morning, Leo ran into their bedroom, holding a school flyer. "Career day. You both have to come." Rey blinked, groggy, "But we're not astronauts or doctors." "You're better," Leo said. "You fix broken things, like dreams." "And dads?" They both went. Ethan talked about building businesses that help people shine. Rey showed the class how to draw a dragon from a single teardrop, and Leo beamed, because her family was the kind that didn't need to be perfect to be magic. One evening, as Rey closed the gallery, she stood by the window. Ethan walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I'm not afraid anymore." "Of what?" "Of being happy." He kissed her shoulder, and they stood there, watching Leo draw galaxies on the floor with sidewalk chalk and quiet joy. This wasn't the life they planned. It was better because it was chosen every day, after every storm, with eyes wide open and hearts finally whole, whispered like a memory, spoken like healing. Sometimes, the love that was taken from us too soon, the kind we buried under silence, pride, or pain, finds its way back, not louder, just braver. Rey didn't think she'd ever open her heart again, not after the man she loved vanished without knowing what she carried. And Ethan didn't think he deserved a second chance, not after all the years he spent building someone else's dream, instead of living his own. But love doesn't check calendars. It doesn't keep score. It just waits, quietly, faithfully, until someone finally whispers, "I'm ready." And sometimes, all it takes is a child's voice, clear and honest, to remind us of what truly matters. That real family is not who stays on paper, but who chooses you, again and again, even after the pages have burned. So maybe today, you're holding a piece of your past that feels too heavy to carry forward. Maybe you've convinced yourself that healing isn't meant for women like you. But if this story taught us anything, it's that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is open the door again, even if your hands are still trembling. If this story touched something quiet inside you, know this: you're not alone. You're not too late. And your story, it's still unfolding. So stay with us, because the next story, it goes even deeper. And maybe this time, it's the one you've been waiting for. Subscribe to our Love Diaries channel for more stories that heal the cracks you thought no one saw. And if this one moved, you leave a comment. Tell us, what would you do if love knocked 9 years too late? We're listening, always. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Rate it from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story. And stay tuned. More powerful stories are waiting for you right here.